Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we are taking a look at a new build. Something I haven't done yet or brought out yet. Even though I did have it ready to go for many other updates, it just never felt like it worked. And so I never released it. I actually played this build on live, have for a very long time. But again, like I said, it never felt like it was quite there, like it quite fit for the entirety of what I was trying to do with this build. So let me go ahead and bring it to you guys now. Little backstory on this. The build itself, the idea of it comes from D&D. It is a bard like school of magic choice that plays into the build and kind of defines it. Now, I tried other things like the Bard of Knowledge. I thought that would be really cool because it's like a bard that's well traveled, has a lot of access to abilities from many different areas of the world, not just from the one particular school. But it didn't really fit the theme of ESO or Elder Scrolls lore. So instead, I bring you the Bard of Storms. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So the Bard of Storms, Wood Elf, Sorcerer, really any race can play this. Literally any race. It's not just the Elf is going to be the best choice, Dark Elf's going to be the best choice, High Elf will be the best choice. Any race is a good choice. And it's all in how the build plays. So it's just its functionality, its playability, excuse me, its overall like idea. So as you can see, with being a Wood Elf, I have 40 into Magicka, 24 into Stamina. This gives me a good kind of balance between Magicka and Stamina. This particular type of bard will still focus more into Stamina than Magicka, depending on the race you choose. So if you go with like a High Elf, you will have higher max Magicka, a little less Stamina. It'll look like this, but it'll be different. The health will still be the same unless you pick like an Argonian, or you pick a Nord, or you pick a not a Templar. What am I thinking? Imperial. You know, a race with a lot of health bonus to it or whatever. But it's meant to be like a hybrid. And I say like a hybrid because it utilizes all areas of the character. So Magicka, Stamina, health, all that. But you should never really have to put into health for the build. You should only have to put into Magicka or Stamina. And it's usually whatever's focus less is what you want to focus more into. So if you're playing like a Magicka race, you're going to focus more into Stamina. If you're playing Stamina, you're going to focus more into Magicka. So that's why the stat split is so big here. Alright. So the way the build works is it is, like I said, a hybrid. So max Magicka is coming at 26k, 28k health, 28k stamina. The mag recovery is coming at 878, 701 health recovery with a 1620 stamina recovery because we are a High Elf. They get more stamina recovery. 3653 spell damage, 653 or 3653 weapon damage. 30% crit on weapon and spell. You will be critting more or get a higher crit with other things depending on what potions you use. And then spell pen and physical pen are coming in at about 2586. We do have 14141 spell with 12415 physical. Not bad. Resistances, it gets much better. Going on, we are running the Thief of Mundstone. Thief of Mundstone isn't like a requirement for all my builds. I just use it a lot because it's the one that gives you the greatest crit chance capability. And most of the builds are built around having a high crit chance for now. Tri-stat food. And you can use dual stat food, such as Ashams and falafel, or grapes and asham falafel. In fact, if you use this, you end up with similar in the stamina magicka side, but a little lower in the health side. Longfin pasty and melon sauce is going to be the primary food you're going to want to use with this. It's going to give you the greater resources. Plus, it's going to give you that little bit of extra health. So, really good for that all-around play. This is something I would use if I was primarily playing dungeons or trials with the build. Looking at potions, we are using tripods. This gives you health, magicka, stamina back immediately, and then it gives you all the fortitude bonuses to health, magicka, and stamina, giving you that 30% recovery for 47 seconds with a recast of or reuse of every 45 seconds. And then you can also use the warrior power pots or the spell power pots depending on how you play the build. Alright, taking a look at gear. Now, the gear I chose for this build is something that I personally like. I think it works really well. Starting with the monster set, we are using Stormfist. This gives you extra stam recovery. And it's a little overkill when you're playing a Wood Elf. You get so much recovery, it's almost ridiculous. On the stamina side, the 2-piece, whenever you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to create a Thunder Fist to crush your enemies, dealing shock damage every second for 3 seconds. And then the final is a fist. The fist closes, dealing 14,000 physical damage. And this can occur once every 8 seconds, and of course it scales off your weapon or spell damage. Moving on to the next set, Night Mother's Gaze. Now, I use Night Mother's Gaze in a lot of my builds because of the fact that it has that major breach on it. There are other ways to get major breach, but this just works out. So the 2 and 4-piece do the crit chance, 3-piece adds weapon and spell damage, and the 5-piece, when you deal critical damage, you apply major breach to enemies, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 6k for 4 seconds. And it has, it does reapply with ticks, dots, things like that. So, really good with that. Moving on to the next set, Bahara's Curse set. Now, this drops in Hugh's Bane, the Thieves Guild storyline. The 2-piece adds max health, 3-piece max magicka, 4-piece max stamina, and then the extra bonus 4-piece reduces your damage taken from environmental traps by 40%. This helps a lot in dungeons because there is a lot of environmental traps in a lot of these dungeons now, so it can help out a lot with that. And then on top of that, the 5-piece, when you deal damage, you have a 25% chance to create desecrated ground for 5 seconds, which reduces the movement speed of enemies by within 3.5 meters by 60%. Damages them for 747 magic damage every second, and heals you for 100% of the damage done. That effect can occur every 5 seconds, and of course it scales off your max health. That's why we use the tri-stat food, is so we can get that greater benefit from the damage when we're playing in dungeons or trials. Alright, going over traits and enchants on the gear. Of course, just like many of my builds, or all of my builds, they all run tri-stats on the head, chest, and legs. This is to give you a more ample pool of resources in other things besides what you primarily use. This is just to make it so you have access to those other tools more effectively. With this particular build, though, we are playing off of the hybrid synth, so we are going to want those more resources in other pools. Taking a look at the traits, of course, invigorating on the head and legs, reinforced on the chest because it is heavy. This is going to give us a good amount of resistance bonus, and then on top of that, it's going to give us a little extra recovery added to our already existing recovery. So we get a lot more out of it. This is a 5-piece medium build, so really, really important that you know that. Next up, on the smaller pieces, we are running shoulders, gloves, belt and boots, divines. with 2 stamina enchants and 2 magic enchants. This is to give us greater hybridization, so we have greater resource pools. Now, I've had this argument with many people. They'll tell you to use Tristat in everything. If you do that, you end up with way more health than what you need to survive in the game, and you do end up with less magic and stamina overall. So, just letting you know. This is actually the better option to go with 2 magicka, 2 stamina, because if you do 4 pieces, it's a lot. You get a lot less with the Tristats in return. All right, moving on to the jewelry. We are running 2 Trirune rings with weapon and spell damage in them. This is to maximize our overall damage with either resource we're using and whatever skills we're using. Because if we need more magic, we can always put into more spell damage through a potion or through other means and get extra magic damage. The same thing with other sources, other things with our characters. So, really want that hybridization of stats. Next up, the necklace is a Trirune or a prismatic recovery, and this gives you the magic, health, and stamina recovery. On top of that, it's infused, so it makes it more powerful. Alright, moving on to the weapons. We are running 2 weapons here. We're running a sword and dagger combo on the front and a bow on the back. So on the front bar, we're running a sword with a crusher enchant. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, crusher's a tank thing. No, it's an anybody thing. And this works really good with your setup because you're going to get a lot of penetration for not just you, but your group with the crusher and the Night Mothers. This will allow you to apply this major breach to more targets, and this is going to allow you to keep the crusher applied to more targets on the front bar. Next one, we're using a weakening enchant. You don't have to use these if you don't want to. This is just the playstyle I like. I like to have all these buffs and debuffs on my kind of DPS hybrid character because it gives me that better application than a tank trying to do all the major breach. I can apply it to more adds or trash, and we can just burn them down a lot quicker. The weakening's there to save my group from taking extra damage. Moving on to the bow. The bow we're using is a infused bow with a weapon damage enchant. Most DPS type builds will use a weapon damage enchant for their extra DPS. This just helps out that much more. So, just a reminder, if you're playing this, the 2 enchants on the front are optional, just like the whole build is optional. But this bow, you really want that weapon and spell damage. You want to boost as much weapon and spell damage as you can into the character to make their skills, abilities, and their monster set hit for a lot more. Not so much with this because this is scales off of health. Alright, so all around good setup with gear, traits, enchants, all that really plays into the hybrid feeling, really allows you that flexibility in your character. Moving on to skills. Now, as I say with all my builds and the skills, unlock everything you can to any skill line you might use. Even if it's a skill line you're not using right now, unlock the skills for later purpose. So you can have access to those skill lines and their passives. Alright, now moving on to the skills we have for the build itself. Now this is going to look like a really funny build because we're using mostly skills from the class and not a lot of skills from other sources. But because we are a sorcerer, we get access to a lot of skills from different areas of functionality anyways. So we get magic skills, we get spell skills, we get lightning skills, we get dark magic, we get summoning, all, you know, these 3 different magic types, but we also have access to all the other skill lines as well. So the skills that I like to use on the build, starting with the first bar, and this is how I play it on live, crystal weapons. It's a very powerful skill, but if used properly. So the main thing about this skill is you encase your weapons in dark crystals for 4 seconds, causing your next light or heavy attack to deal 8,000 physical damage, and reducing your target's armor by an extra 1,000 for 5 seconds. When you apply that break to your opponent, it will go for everybody. It's not just for you. So that extra 1,000 armor pen gets applied for everybody. So it's like having extra penetration. So you're not just getting like 1,000 from your weapon, you're getting 2,000 when you use this, and it makes it really powerful with that Crusher and the Night Mothers. Next skill we have is Liquid Lightning. Now we use a lot of dots on this build, so we can spam the heck out of Crystal Weapon. So the next skill is Liquid Lightning. As you can see, it deals shock damage over 14 seconds. And then an ally standing in it can activate the synergy, giving them resources back, and then dealing shock damage to enemies around them. Next up we have Quick Cloak. This is how we keep our dots, an extra dot up, but we also keep our enchants up from our main hand weapons, no matter what bar we're on. So whether we're on our front bar or we're on our back bar, this will keep it applied. It helps a lot. So you gain the Major Evasion, which reduces area of effect damage by 20%, and then every 2 seconds it deals physical damage to all enemies within 5 meters, and you gain Major Expedition for 4 seconds. Really good overall. Next up we have Echoing Vigor. This has to be here. It does not work without it. You'll see why in a minute. Echoing Vigor is a great skill for this particular setup. It has a good heal over 10 seconds, and it gets better with your weapon and spell damage. Next up, and this is one that's near and dear to my heart for this build, Bound Armaments. So this one, you arm yourself with the Power of Oblivion for 40 seconds, causing your light and heavy attacks to summon a bound weapon for 10 seconds, up to 4 times. You can reactivate this ability at half the cost of to arm the weapon, causing the strike to strike your target for an extra physical damage every 0.3 seconds. And then while slotted, your max stamina is increased by 8%, and your light attacks deal 10% more damage. This just helps you keep that damage like up, but you can also keep it as an activated toggle that you activate on the back bar and then recast on the front bar. We do have this on both bars. Next skill we have, and this is what makes this build so good, Power Overload. It is a very high damage skill or ultimate, and it's super cheap, but you want to cast it when you have a lot of ultimate because it drains ultimate to use the ultimate. So your light attacks become lightning bolts, dealing 10,000 shock damage to enemies within 32 meters. Heavy attacks blast the enemy in a 6x8 area, dealing shock damage every second. And then attacks deplete ultimate until you run out or ability is toggled off. This is something you're going to use a lot. You're going to be toggling on and off for not just ranged purposes, but also just good damage purposes. Moving on to the back bar. First skill we have is Venomero. This is a great skill. It does damage up front, damage over time, and it also has the ability to set casting, any enemy casting an ability, whether it's stamina or magicka. It'll interrupt him, set him off balance, and stun him for 3 seconds, which allows you to do more damage to them because they can't do anything. So, next up we have Endless Hail. This is a great damage over time. It lasts for 12 seconds instead of 10 of Arrow Barrage, and it does take damage after 2 seconds for those 12 seconds. So, next up, this is what makes this build work really good, and that is Power Surge. So this one, you invoke Meridia's name, gain Major Brutality, Sorcery, increasing both weapon and spell damage for 33 seconds. While active, activating a critical heal causes the ability to heal you and your allies around you for 2601 health. This effect can occur once every 3 seconds. So as you're dealing, you're Vigor is ticking heals, it has a chance to crit. If it crits, or your gear set critically heals you, and not just does critical damage, but critically heals you, it will proc Power Surge to heal everyone around you for an extra little bit of health. Next up, we have Boundless Storms, and that's why one of the reasons why we call this Bard of Storms is this one skill. It's not all the skills you use, or the fact that you're playing a sorcerer that has a lot of lightning skills. It's this one skill that makes you stand out amongst other bards perchance. It's a magic accosting ability, and it zaps nearby enemies for 790 shock damage every second for 23 seconds. While in this form, you also gain major resolve, increasing both spell and physical resist by 6k, and then activating this grants major expedition for a brief period, increasing your movement speed by 30% for 4 seconds. You will have this up before you have Bound Cloak, or the Quick Cloak. The Quick Cloak is there for you to get that extra burst of speed in the battlefield. This allows you that beginning burst of speed in the battlefield, so it gives you that really good mobility to get to where you need to be, so you can be amongst your group to get those heals off and keep your group alive while dealing damage. It's not a healer, it's not a damage dealer, it's not a tank, it's kind of a little bit of everything, and that's what makes it such a good build and such a fun build to play. Next up, we have our Bound Armaments again. I'm not going to explain it all over again. It's a great skill to have on both bars because of the 8% stamina, and the light attacks deal 10% more damage. Remember, every skill you cast or activate, you will be doing a light attack afterwards, so you're going to get that extra 10% more damage. Now, this skill is kind of like optional. You can also put Warhorn here, but I like the Absorption field because it does a 12-second magic suppression, removing and preventing all enemies enemy area of effect abilities from occurring in the area, and enemies within the globe are stunned, while enemy players will be silenced rather than stunned. But the great part is, the globe heals you and your allies for 2,800 health every second. Now that does scale off your max weapon or spell damage, whichever stat is higher. So in this case, it's going to be primarily max stamina and weapon damage. So it's going to boost that by a lot more. The thing you have to understand about this build and the skill use is we're already a hybrid. So a lot of the skills we're going to use are going to be magicka based or stamina based, depending on what race we choose. We're still going to use stamina morphs, we're still going to use magicka morphs, but it gives us a lot more flexibility in what morphs we choose. Like, if you wanted to, instead of using crystal weapons, you could use crystal frags and still be up close in the target's face dealing damage. You could also use skills like Shattering Prison, which deals magic damage and it locks enemies down for 4 seconds, and if no enemy are immobilized, you restore so much magicka. It's really just overall like good skills in the tool set. You have access to the Ruin Cage, which is a great damage skill and stun. The Dark Deal is another great way to get resources. If you're struggling for resources, you can take the Magicka Morph or the Stamina Morph. It doesn't matter. It depends on what resources you struggle with. Daedric Minefield's a great damage skill that you can put around your enemies. From the summoning side, you got Charged Astronaut, really good lightning damage, AoE kind of thing. You've got the Summon Unstable Clanfear, which actually is really good because it deals physical damage, even though it's a magicka cost skill, and it's got a great active ability where you can do damage and heal yourself and the Clanfear for so much, which is really good. It's great for when you're solo playing. Haunting Curse is a great skill because it applies it damage and does damage over time, and then it has a chance, or it has the ability for the damage to refire again later on. It's just a really good skill all around. Summon Twilight Matriarch, another great skill. It does damage at the creature and around it, and then on top of it, it has a heal benefit for you and your group. Empowered Ward is a great one to have for group play because it can give you a damage shield. It also gives your group Minor Intellect, increasing their mag recovery for 15% for 10 seconds after casted. Storm Calling has a lot of great abilities. Endless Fury is a great, like, execute in a way. It's like a minor execute, but it works out really well. Of course, we've talked about all these others. And then Ball Lightning is a great mobility skill that you can use in PvP, PvE, whatever. It just gets you around a lot quicker. Moving on to weapon skills, dual wield, lots of skills in here that you can use that aren't on the bar, like, you know, Blood Craze, Rapid Strikes if you don't want to use the crystal weapons, and Quick Cloak. Those are great options for damage. On the bow side, there's a lot of other things you can use, like Focused Aim, Toxic Barrage, Magma Shot's great for PvP. Acid Spray is another one, great for dungeons, so just letting you know. When it comes to armor, we are in medium armor, so we get none of the negative benefits, except we are wearing one piece of light, which isn't really going to affect us, and the one piece of heavy isn't really going to affect us as much with the negative benefits. Or positive benefits. So, the Shuffle skill is a really good one. It gives you major evasion, reducing damage from area attacks by 20% for 20 seconds. And then each piece of medium armor removes, Warren removes or grants immunity to snares and immobilizations for 1 second. So the more you have, the longer that snare removal, or the more that snare removal works. World skills, Scry Magic or Soul Magic. Really good skills you can use at any time. Of course, like I said, being a bard, you're going to have access to skills, all kinds, every skill, and you can use them effectively. So, Flawless Dawnbreaker, Silver Leash, Ring of Preservation, Evil Hunter, or Barb Trap. These are the choices I use on live. So, Ice Comet, Inner Light, Structured Entropy, Scalding Ruin, and Spell Symmetry. And then on the Sigil Order side, I use Temporal Guard, Borrowed Time, Crushing Weapon, Channeled Acceleration, Min Spirit, Deep Thoughts. And of course, moving on to Undaunted, Sanguine Altar, really just a great, you know, skill that you can throw out to help your group. Tangled Web is a great CC, both in PvE and in PvP, and it can be synergized in PvE, or PvP. Inner Beast is a great taunt if you need a taunt if you're tanking, say, like a normal dungeon or even veteran dungeons. Bone Surge is a great damage shield, and then Energy Orb, great heal, you know, resource-giving tool. Sorry, I just sneezed. Assault Line, Aggressive Horn, Echoing Vigor, and Caltrops, and then support, Reviving Barrier, Efficient Purge, and Mystic Guard. Racials, this is a Wood Elf, so you get Hunter's Eye, which increases your stealth detection radius by 3 meters, and it increases your movement speed by 5% and your physical and spell resistance by 950. These are just extra things that kind of add to the overall playability of the character. We also have Yifri's Endurance, which increases our stamina recovery, and we have Resistant Affliction, or Resist Affliction, which is a 2,000 stamina increase with spell or disease and poison resistance. Crafts, passives, medicinal use, and provisioning, Gourmet and Connoisseur. Alright, now I'm going to move on to champion points and what champion point tree stuff I use and what I think works really good for the build. So green wise, of course, Professional Upkeep, Steed's Blessing, Liquid Efficiency, and Rationer. I use these primarily all the time because it plays so well into, you know, all around, like, just adventure play. But when I'm doing things like the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood, just so people know, I do have that stuff. Like, I would suggest unlocking those benefits to give you access to that stuff. On the blue tree, or the Warfare, we have Hope Infusion. Healing yourself or an ally under 50% health grants them minor heroism for 1 second. For every 300 magic recovery you have, this effect can occur every 10 seconds per target. So the minor heroism gives you the, you know, the resource return for 1 second for every 300 magicka. That's a lot. When you look at this, you have 2,600 magicka, so you're going to give them a lot more heroism time if you heal them below that much health. Next up, we do have Deadly Aim. This increases your single target damage by 10%. We have Thaumaturge, which increases your damage over time by 2%. And then we have Biting Aura, which increases your damage done with area of effects by 2% per stage. Somebody said I didn't show the blue tree layout of what I have unlocked. It takes too long to show all that, so I'm just showing you the red, the slotted stuff. But by the time you get to 3,600 points, this is what you can build out to, just to show you. And there's even things in the sub-trees that are unlocked that you don't see. So, really good overall. Like, I can access a lot more on my character than what I could otherwise. Now, this is, again, 3,600 CP. Not a, like, completely maxed out character, but it's maxed out enough. Or this is a completely maxed out character. Most players aren't at this point in the game anyways. So, they're just showing you. The red tree, I do have unspent points, and that's because I just didn't know where to put them. So you could really just put it anywhere you wanted, you know, like I could put up here, I could go like this, and fill in that. Maybe I want some extra shield strength, you know, kind of thing, for whatever reason. So there. The red tree, Spirit Mastery, decreases the time it takes you to resurrect an ally by 33%. It's up there in that top corner. Then we have Survival Instincts. While afflicted with status effects, your core combat skills cost 5% per stage, a maximum of 25%. Siphoning Spells. This one restores magicka whenever you kill an enemy. And then Rejuvenation grants you health, magic, and stamina recovery. Now, you guys are probably wondering why I took Siphoning Spells. It's because if I kill an enemy, I get magicka back. And I don't have a really good recovery, so that really helps with that. But on top of that, I do have the Dark Exchange, which is stamina to magicka. So it's kind of like, do I take Dark Exchange or do I take that benefit where it gives me the resource back whenever I kill an enemy? And I like the one wherever I kill an enemy, I get that resource back. So overall, works out really well. So now you guys are asking, what's the rotation look like? So I'll show you. We're going to do it on this target dummy here. And it's really quite simple. You're going to start with the Bound Armaments, Hurricane, Light Attack, Poison Injection, Light Attack, Endless Hail, and also get your Power Surge up. You're going to swap to the front bar. You're going to cast the Crystal Shards, Attack, Liquid Lightning, Light Attack, Quick Cloak, Light Attack, and then cast Vigor. The reason you're waiting to cast Vigor is so you can get that heal over time. As you're doing your rotation, you see the weapons are around me. When you're on the front bar, you can also cast it to do that extra damage over time. When do you need to use Energy Overload? Whenever you feel it's needed. Like if you're in a big crowd and you have a lot of trash around you, go in and heavy attack and you get to do a lot of damage. Or throw from a distance if you need it for a ranged. You can throw from a distance, which is really good. If you gotta like dodge, roll back, hit R to activate, and then just throw like a couple lightning bolts, move back in and start fighting. It's there for that purpose. For those oh crap moments where you're in a group and you're fighting a boss or something and you need some healing, you can throw down the absorption field. Otherwise, you're going to be doing a lot of healing with your Echoing Vigor to those in front of you and around you. And then with Power Surge, the extra healing from that plays overall really well into the build. Remember, you have your own personal healing through other things like Vigor, Power Surge, Bahara's Curse. And then you're applying a lot of debuffs, buffs, and things like that. So overall, really good setup for that kind of play. And that is pretty much the Boundless Storms. Now again, it's not the greatest setup or the best setup in the world. There's other builds or other races you can use with this. They can give you a little bit better functionality. The reason I chose the Wood Elf is because that's what I play on live. Alright. So now that I've shown you all this stuff, you guys know what's coming next. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. If you do subscribe, I do suggest you click that notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.